أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ادعوا ربكم تضرعا وخفية إنه لا يحب المعتدين ولا تفسدوا في الأرض بعد إصلاحها وادعوه خوفا وطمعا ولا تفسدوا في الأرض بعد إصلاحها وادعوه خوفا وطمعا إن رحمة الله قريب من المحسنين. صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasul al-Kareem. I begin in the name of Allah and I thank Him for that which He has taught us and for His inspiration, for that which He has caused us to say and understand, and for all the blessings and peace He has bestowed upon us. May Allah's peace and blessings rest upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whom Allah sent as a mercy to mankind. May Allah's peace and blessings rest upon His family, companions, and those who excel in following their footsteps until the Day of Judgment. Jazakallah khair for everybody for coming here today. I have to be honest, I feel a bit ashamed to be addressing the elders of our community who have taught me so much, and I would rather be listening to you and continue to seek your advice that has benefited me greatly. I'd like to start off with an Arab proverb that some friends said to me. And the proverb which they said was, stay away from politics because it turns you into a mule. I repeat that proverb, stay away from politics because it turns you into a mule. And here I am today on the back of the advice of our elders and guidance from our elders going into politics. But one thing I have learned is that coming from a large Pakistani family in Longsight in Manchester, and my involvement in Muslim organisations, it was great training for politics that I'm involved in today. Going back to stay away from politics because it turns you into a mule, my psychology teacher in college always used to say that within every joke there's an element of truth. And I believe within this there's a huge element of truth, because without guidance from our elders, without guidance from our scholars, without advice and support from our community, me going into politics without those factors would actually turn me into a mule. And it's remembering those factors and keeping that connection with yourselves and supporting that next generation that we don't turn them into politicians, but we actually make sure that they stay engaged and active within the community and giving back to the community at the same time. I have to say that I'm honoured and I'm privileged to be speaking in front of you all. Honoured to be speaking in front of many elders who I look up to and many elders who have given me advice to get me where I am today. Honoured because I'm speaking in front of future leaders of our community as well. But privileged because people like myself from backgrounds that I'm from don't usually get to stand in front of positions that I'm in today, addressing audiences like yourselves. But that's exactly what education gave me. Going to university, it gave me the opportunity to actually help my family. It gave me the opportunity to make something of myself. It gave me the opportunity to become a role model in the community. Now, one of my teachers once said to me in East London, he said, the future belongs to those who see the possibilities before they become obvious. The future belongs to those who see the possibilities before they become obvious. My family, until today, still joke around about me going into politics. And they always remind me of how naughty I was as a child and how naughty I still am today. I learned a lot as a youngster in the mosque. I was the child that actually did most of my football training in the back of the mosque. I was the child that kept fit and active by running away from my Quran teacher. And actually training my legs because I had to constantly be in the murga position when the Quran teacher actually caught me. I was the child that was playing when he should have been reciting, the one who was talking when he should have been listening, the one who was daydreaming when he should have been focusing on what was being taught. Yes, I was the nightmare at the mosque, but here I am today. And alhamdulillah, I'm here in front of you because of your patience and your love for your community and your investments. And there are many, many more examples, people in this room, people who haven't even made it here today, people who are still playing football in the back of the mosque, people who aren't paying attention, but they are our young, bright and active Muslims in this audience who are our future beneficiaries, inshallah. So there's huge amounts of talents that we need to engage with and get involved in, and so much more we can be doing. I'd like to finish off with a story, inshallah. And some of you might have heard this before. I remember when I first went to university, and I was sitting in my lecture theatre, and the lecturer asked who wants to be a course rep, who wants to get involved. And this person didn't even know what a course rep was. But all his friends were nudging him. And out of peer pressure, he put his hand up and said, I'll be a course rep. And I remember it vividly. So he put his hand up, said, I'll be a course rep, and he had no idea what he was getting himself into. But by becoming a course rep, he started to become more engaged at university. I call it education outside the classroom, really important in terms of the people that you meet and what you learn from the diverse range of people at university. And by getting involved, he started to speak to different people on his course. He started to make sure their issues were taken forward, spoke to the lecturers and tried to make sure these issues were sorted out. Now, back then, there was a lot of issues between the final year students and the first year students. The final year students came, they didn't like the first year students, and there was a lot of tension between them. So as a course rep, he got together and he organised a football tournament between the first years, second years, third years, and even the lecturers at the same time. I'm happy to say that the first years won. But in that sense, it broke down the barriers from day one. But without him realising, he was actually picking up skills. He was developing himself because he was communicating with different people. Skills he didn't even think that he had. He didn't come from a family of reading books. He came from a family that owned restaurants, so his learning style was completely different. It was a lot more hands-on. And he excelled in that field. He excelled because he was learning by being hands-on. Now again, putting that into context, didn't do that well in his GCSEs, didn't do that well in his A-levels, and actually didn't do that well in his degree, but is now standing in front of you in a very influential position, shows that if I can do it, there's so many more people in the community who can do a lot more than Osman Ali ever did. And it's those people that we need to find in the community. I'm here because of the guidance that I got from people like Harris, the support I got from many of our community elders, people like Dr. Bari, people in terms of support like Uncle Shabir at the front, people like Sister Julie. And there's many, many more people in the community that are out there that can go a lot further with the guidance of yourselves and the support of yourselves. Not many people can say this, but I'm very privileged. As Vice President of NUS, I was invited by our Prime Minister, David Cameron, to 10 Downing Street. And I actually replied back and said, I'm too busy to meet you. Which I actually was. But for me, it was never being invited to 10 Downing Street. It was a lot more important going back home into Longsight and being able to give that invitation to my mum and seeing her smile. And there's many more people in those communities whose parents, like my mum, is that inspiration. And we need to find them, nurture them, and make sure they are empowered. A sister once said to me, she goes, if you're not in the restaurant, you're on the menu. Muslims aren't even in the restaurant. Never mind on the table, we're not even in the restaurant. And these are where the decisions are being made. There's two types of power. There's personal power, which is your personal characteristics, charisma, being funny and so on, and you can take people on that journey and inspire people. But it's position of influence that we lack in the community, and that's where the decisions are being made. And if we're not around those tables, we're being discussed, and we need to be around those tables so we're influencing the decisions which are then coming out. It was you, the community, that took a naughty child like me, who then empowered people like me and pushed me and pushed me to believe I can do so much more than I ever imagined. But we all need to go back now, because you all know 10 further Usman Alis in your centre, in your communities and your children. My mum was the person who empowered me. When I was brought up in Langside and we still live in those areas, my mum was worried about me getting involved in drugs. So she used to drive an hour for me to play football. She used to drive another hour so I'd get involved in community activities. And it's through that I met people like Harris and other people in the community who then empowered me. And it's making sure that through that empowerment of our next generation, that with them we push the boundaries, we identify and we empower. And we find those people and we give them a chance, we empower them and let them know that they are good enough. We have to find the future Sadiq Khans, the future Harris Bukharis, Dr. Baris, Sheikh Bals, Farouk Murads, Fatima Junaids, Sister Julie's, and many, many more people, because they're out there in the community. But it's, like I said before, involve me and I understand. We need to involve them in the process so they then become part of the process and they learn a lot more. You were the generation, the great generation in building our institutions and our buildings. And now, inshallah, our efforts have to be in building a generation and our next generation of leaders. I started off with the quote that I'm going to finish off with and finish off on this point. The future belongs to those who see the possibilities before they become obvious. Jazakallah khair to the elders in the room for the possibilities that they create for people like me, and inshallah the next generation of possibilities that they will create. Jazakallah khair.
One of the issues, of course, that has a big concern from us is the Islamophobia. Islamophobic feelings are increasing now as we see, and always mostly incited by media, actually. And this is actually something must be tackled and must be dealt with. And we hope really, with the help of the politician, actually, and then we can really find a solution of all these feelings. And that will help really too much to solve the problem of the identity of the young generation. When young generation feel they are safe, they are really not discriminated in a society, that means they feel they are more loyal and they belong to this country and they have the citizenship, the real citizenship of this remarkable and marvelous country in which we are really working, all of us together living and trying together to build a better future for all of us. Many issues actually, I don't need to name these all. I'm sure some brothers and sisters here have really more concern, and I'm sure these are all in our minds. Building trust, for example, with the Muslim community. This is something really very and badly needed. We need to build more trust. A lot of things actually happen. Muslim community in the last decade, Muslim community try their best really to show their engagement, to show their contribution with the government and to the authorities in this country. But even some young generation do not feel that they gain the trust we want them to gain, which is very, very important. We need together to put our hands, I believe, with the Muslim community really to tackle and face this threat in the future. Of course, I don't want to mention that's actually terrorism legislations. I don't want to mention also some of the incitement of hatred, etc., etc. Trust, I think, is really the cornerstone of the engagement. Without this trust, I don't think engagement with the Muslim community will be reachable and will be achieved. Finally, I would like to thank you so much really for giving us as Muslim community and giving us as Islamic Cultural Centre here this chance, both of you and with the distinguished guest, to be with us in this really remarkable evening. Thank you very much for coming here, for giving us this chance to talk to you. And also I express also my deep thanks to all of you, dear brothers and sisters, for being with us here. And I have to thank, of course, Brother Ayaz and Brother Harris for their work to let this happen today and to let this achievable. Thank you very much. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Nahmadu wa sallallahu Rasul al-Kareem. Brothers and sisters, I begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and I give salams to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Assalamu alaikum. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. And Ed, had you not given me the jobs you've given me, I'd be there in the audience coming to hear you speak today because it's fantastic. So many of you have come to listen to engage with, to ask questions of Ed this evening. I'm really pleased to see all of you here. It's worth reminding ourselves and Brother Iqbal Sikrani, who met us at the door. I mean, Iqbal, you all remember the meetings we organised here in previous decades and previous years, for example, to meet to try and see if we could meet, we could persuade a government to bring in laws to outlaw religious discrimination. And we'd meet and we'd think, was it possible? Could we do so? And we did. And we'd meet here to discuss whether it's possible to bring in laws to outlaw some of the things taking place that Brother Dubian referred to. We met and we did, and we managed to change the law. But what's unique about this evening is it's the first time in the history of Regents Park Mosque, the Islamic Cultural Centre, that we've had the leader of the Labour Party, and if the commentators, the pollsters and the journalists are correct, the future Prime Minister, to come to the masjid and to engage with us on equal terms. And it gives me a great sense of pride to say my good friend Ed Miliband has come this evening to speak to you, engage with you, listen to you. It's very important. I've got to make a confession though. This afternoon when I saw on Twitter, the hashtag for tonight is a date with Ed. Now, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be fasting and it was to break the fast, or whether there was some dodgy business going on. It's neither of those two things. It's really good to be here. Haris, can I just say before you introduce Ed Miliband, these things don't happen by themselves. Haris Bukhari and his team have done a fantastic job to organise tonight's event. So I want to say, in conclusion, before Haris introduce Ed this evening, Jazakallah khair for coming here tonight and for taking an interest in the welfare of our brothers and sisters in this country. Thank you so much for engaging with, listening to, and holding Ed to task about some of the things that you're interested in, what you'd like him to do as a future Prime Minister. So, Jazakallah khair, have a fantastic evening.
Well, Mr. Dubian, Sadiq, Harris, ladies and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum to you all. And let me say what a privilege it is to be here at the Islamic Cultural Centre. And you can see by the number of distinguished colleagues I have from the Labour Party with me tonight, including Keith Vaz, Margaret Beckett, and many others, that it shows the importance of this event for us in the Labour Party. Now, as Sadiq and Harris and Mr. Dubian have all said, tonight is about genuine engagement. It isn't about a long speech from a politician. I promise you it will be a short speech from me, and it is about genuine engagement because I think it is incredibly important, and the reason I'm here tonight is to have dialogue with the Muslim community. And I am so grateful to you all for coming across all parts of our country to be here with us tonight. Let me just say a few things by way of introduction. First of all, I think I should make an apology because it has taken me 43 years of my life to come here to the Islamic Cultural Centre, but I grew up only a mile away. And as I was saying earlier on, my first promise to you tonight is that it won't take me another 43 years to come back here. And you know, I think it's a very, very important point to start with because the Islamic Cultural Centre and the Regents Park Mosque were part of the fabric of my childhood, even though I never came here. It was part of the fabric of the London that I grew up in. It was part of the fabric of the school I went to, a comprehensive school, Haverstock School, where more than 60 languages were spoken. And for me, that is so much part of the country we are, and so much part of the country that I am proud that we am. And that is the first thing I want to say to you, because the Muslim community throughout this country plays such an incredibly important role, not just in the life of this community, but in the life of our whole country. The second thing I want to say, and I want to engage with you on, is about the Labour Party and what it stands for and what we are trying to achieve in this country. And we will have many discussions, I hope, this evening about these issues. But I have talked about the idea of one nation. I talked in my Labour Party conference speech about the idea of one nation. What is one nation about? One nation is based on the multi-ethnic, diverse vision of the Britain that we are and the Britain that I am proud of. But it says something which I think is deeply rooted in the Muslim faith, which is about our concern for each other, our care for each other, and the fact that we are more successful as a country and as a community where everybody plays their part. And that is what One Nation is all about. And I want to briefly take to you tonight what is One Nation about more specifically. First of all, it is about an economy that works for everybody. You know, I saw some figures before I came here this evening that 88% of members of the Bengali community were recipients of the educational maintenance allowance, something that was abolished by this government. Now, why is that? Does that speak to the idea of one nation? Because it speaks to the idea of how do we create a country where everybody can get on. That is what the Labour Party has always been about. That is what the Labour Party stands for. It does not stand for a country which works for a few rich and powerful people. It stands for a country that works for everybody. And that is what we would do if we were in government, and we will talk this evening about the kind of things that would mean. Secondly, we're about a society, as I said, where we look after each other. About a society where everybody shows their obligations to each other, rich and poor, and every faith of this country. And thirdly, and very importantly for this evening, we're about a politics that represents the whole country. And you know, let me say this, I'm very proud of the Muslim members of parliament that we have. I am so proud that Labour in 1997 elected the first Muslim member of parliament, the first Muslim member of the House of Lords. In 2010, the first 3 Muslim women members of parliament. But I also know we have a long way to go to look like the country we seek to represent. We have a long way to go in improving our representation at every level. At every level, whether it is in the House of Lords, the House of Commons, councillors. And that can only be done through dialogue with you and through engagement with you on the issues that our country faces and the issues that the Muslim community faces. So One Nation is about an economy, a society, and a politics that builds for this whole country. A country we rebuild together where everybody can play their part, including people right across the Muslim community. That is my reason for being here with you tonight. I want to thank again the Islamic Cultural Centre for making this evening possible. I hope this will not just be one moment of dialogue that we have, but a continuing dialogue. And let me just say finally, in acknowledging some of the issues that have already been raised, I will not come here this evening and say everything the last Labour government did was right. I'm proud of many of our achievements. I've acknowledged some of our mistakes. But I do believe this, that we can build a country we can be proud of, but we can only do it if we work together. That is the reason for my presence here this evening, and I look forward to our conversation. Thank you very much. Look, I think first of all, I want to acknowledge the incredibly important role that Muslims throughout Britain play in our country and the life of our country, and I want to applaud that role. Secondly, my view is very simple, which is the law must be applied consistently and must be applied in a way that doesn't discriminate against any section of the population, any faith, any religion, any group of people. That is the principle of what I call One Nation, which is about a country we rebuild together, and that can only happen if you have equality before the law. And so any government I lead would have that aim. Now, on the specifics of what you mentioned, I've said I thought we were wrong to pursue the 90 days proposal when we were in government. I think it was a mistake, something that I acknowledge. We didn't get the balance right on some issues around civil liberties. And I believe the government has reduced the number of days from 28 days to 14 days, and we support that. On the other issues you raised, stop and search should be applied consistently, not in a way that discriminates against one population or another. And I'm pleased to say the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police has himself said there are issues that need to be looked at on stop and search. Well, look, I'm for a consistent approach across all issues. And let me just deal with the issue of Israel-Palestine. On the specific issue of Israel-Palestine, we support a two-state solution. It's very, very important, and that includes rights for the Palestinian people. Now, one specific thing that we've said, which this current government hasn't said, is that we support the Palestinian bid for statehood, recognition at the United Nations. Why is that so important? I think it's so important because it sends a signal to those moderate voices who represent the Palestinian Authority that actually they can have some encouragement that we're going to move the peace process forward. Now, it's very, very important for Britain to be an honest broker in this peace process. Somebody just asked me a question about this and precisely used a similar phrase about being an honest broker. And that is our approach, an honest broker that seeks to encourage both sides to engage in meaningful negotiations, but also recognises the obligations of the international community as well. Look, my view on Hamas is that they should recognise the right of the State of Israel to exist and renounce violence, the so-called quartet principles, and then they should be part of negotiations. But I think it's right that Hamas recognises the State of Israel, because if you're going to be in negotiations, you can't be in a situation where one party says we don't want the other party to even exist. So it's about recognition of the State of Israel and the renunciation of violence.